Hi, it's Bishop Mark. Welcome back. Today is Luke chapter 1, verses 57 to 66. And today we have the birth of John, the child, the baby of Elizabeth and Zechariah. You remember how the archangel came to Zechariah and said he was going to have a baby, or his wife was going to have a baby, and the baby would be named John. And Zechariah didn't 100% believe the angel. I just was confused. And so he, as a kind of a punishment, and also as another way he would make sure that this was from God, he lost his voice. The archangel said that he would be speechless until these things happened. So that's where we pick up the story of Elizabeth and Zechariah. Mary has come and visited and gone away. And now we have the birth of John. When the time arrived for Elizabeth to have her child, she gave birth to a son. Her neighbors and relatives heard that the Lord had shown his great mercy toward her, and they rejoiced with her. I'm sure that your neighbors and your relatives all rejoiced when you were born. It's natural to be happy. I know that I know stories of my own birth where I was kind of big and I was late. I was 2 weeks late. And so there's stories, there's legends of the birth of every child, and the people were happy. Maybe you could ask your parents any story about your birth. But this is the story of John's birth, and they were so happy that the couple, Zechariah and Elizabeth, had a baby. Okay, we'll continue. When they came on the 8th day to circumcise the child, they were going to call him Zechariah after his father. But his mother said in reply, "No, he will be called John." Okay, so in that time, the babies were named, if they were a boy, on the 8th day. And it was a big little celebration. And so Zechariah can't speak. So they want to name him, and they think he's going to be named Zechariah. Maybe some of you are named after your father or your mother with the same name. Well, they thought, well, we'll call him Zechariah after his father, even though Zechariah can't speak. And the mother, Elizabeth, said, no, he's going to be named John. Now that surprised them. Listen to this. No, he will be called John. But they answered her, there was no one among your relatives who has this name. Now, naming babies is always special. Someday also you could ask your parents, why were you named the name you named? Maybe you know already. My name is Mark. I was named Mark because my parents were married on the feast day of St. Mark, April 25th. And also, my father grew up in a church. The parish's name was Mark. So it was a great name for me, their child. Why were you named the name you were named? That one might be an interesting thing to ask your parents. So, at that time, how they named people was very specific. It was either the name of the father. This was the first child, so people thought naturally be the same name as the father. Or there might be other names that are handed down. Or sometimes they're descriptions of the child. But there was certain names that people would expect at that time. But no one expected John for this baby. So what do? They go and they ask Zechariah. Here we go. So they made signs asking his father what he wished him to be called. See, they think he's going to be called Zechariah, and his father would say something like me, right? Zechariah. But that's not what happened. He, meaning Zechariah, asked for a tablet and wrote. Now, it wasn't an iPad. We call those tablets. But it was probably more like a chalkboard or something to write down, right? So, but he asked for a tablet and wrote, "John is his name." And all were amazed. Now, John is short form for another name, but it pretty much means God's gift of God. And clearly John, Elizabeth, and Zechariah's child was a gift of God. So it's a perfect name. And we know it's a perfect name because the angel Gabriel gave the name to Zechariah and Elizabeth. Because this was God's gift to Elizabeth and Zechariah for being good. Remember the word? Righteous people. Okay, we'll continue. So he writes, John is his name, and immediately his mouth was opened, his tongue freed, and he spoke, blessing God. So the angel Gabriel had said this being speechless would end when these things were fulfilled. So Zechariah proved himself by writing John is his name, and his mouth was opened, and he could speak. The people were amazed. He hadn't spoken for 9 months. They got used to him not speaking, and all of a sudden he's speaking. And see the first thing he does? He spoke, blessing God. Do you remember he lost his voice right before his blessing of the people? Well, his voice is opened, and he praises God. Then fear came upon all their neighbors, and all these matters were discussed throughout the hill country of Judea. All who heard these things took them to heart, saying, "What then will this child be? For surely the hand of the Lord was with him." So it was big news in that neighborhood that these things happened, that they were older, they had a baby. They thought it would be named Zechariah. No, it's John. And Zechariah wrote on the chalkboard, and all of a sudden he could speak. All these things, everyone said, oh, let's tell everyone. So all through the land, people were saying, listen to this story. Something interesting has happened here. What will this child do with his life? Who will this child be? Now we know who he is. He's John. He's the one that came before the Messiah, the Savior, Jesus. We've spoken about that. But they didn't know. They just said, who is he? Okay, we'll continue to there, and we're going to hear Zechariah's prayer next time. Peace to you. Bye now.